Why do you think some churches are better at reaching Gen Z than others?
Gen Z speak the language of being real. Millennials, they spoke the language of relevance. You think of like millennial church, you think of the purple lights, you think of the perfect service flow, you think of the perfect Instagram, perfectly curated. Then you think of a Gen Z church. They're doing like memes on their main feed, bro. They're doing like TikToks. Like their pastor is like preaching the Bible straight line by line. The worship is super authentic. It's not like formulated. Pastors that were trying to pastor millennials were like just trying to keep them in church. I think that whole culture world is like, let me try to impress you, make everything cater to you, actually turned everyone off to church. And that's why we saw such a decline. Now we're in a place where like Christianity is kind of cool again. It's like, oh, you're a Christian? Like, tell me more. If church is leaning into this culture where it's like, we aren't like the world, actually. We're opposite of the world. That's what is really intriguing to Gen Z. I think when we speak that way, we look that way, I think more Gen Z are gonna be more intrigued.
Welcome back to the Church Candy Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Jacob Zaguro. Bro,
What's up?
what's going on, man?
I'm excited. I'm glad we actually have to do it in person.
I know.
Yeah.
Dude, so we actually filmed a podcast like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Riverside glitch. The audio was terrible. And that's just sitting on a hard drive somewhere.
For sure. And I had like my kids playing like toys in the background. Like it was like so bad. It was loud.
But now we got the
But
studio.
now we're here.
We got the studio.
God was waiting for this moment.
Amen, bro. Amen. Well, you've blown up on Instagram recently. And it's funny, like my team will be like, oh, dude, you should collab with this guy. I'm like, oh, who is it? Jason. Not Jason. They're like, Jake. They're like, Jacob Salguero. Like, and I was like, yeah, like we went to, and I'll have to like tell them.
Bible college.
I was like, we went to Bible college. Like we did group projects.
We did actually,
together. Dude. So I'm gonna pitch this. If anyone wants to invest, Jacob and I worked on a project called Accountability Buddy. You remember this?
I do remember this. That's so crazy.
It was like a Covenant Eyes competitor.
Yeah.
And dude, I think this could work in 2025.
Okay.
Accountability Buddy. And it's like Covenant Eyes, but for like DoorDash.
Okay.
And food delivery services.
That's fire.
Bro, could you imagine? It's 2 a.m.
Bro, I can't believe that DoorDash has Klarna options.
Dude, that's wild.
That's unbelievable.
Dude, imagine.
You're a big back.
Imagine you're like 2 a.m., can't sleep. You're like, bro, I want like a patty melt right now from Whataburger. And then you order it, and then your buddy gets notified.
Oh, Lord.
And it's like, that's your
It
accountability
should
partner
post
right
for
there.
you. Like,
Bro.
so it has to be public shaming.
Dude.
Because I think a text is like whatever, right? But if you do a public shaming, like I just got a.
You got a patty melt at 2 a.m. And I Klarna'd it too.
Yeah, and then you can't delete it for 24 hours or something. Oh, that would be fire.
All right. So any push pay, Tithely, if any of you guys
Come
want
on, accountability buddy.
It's coming. But man, Jacob, why don't you go ahead, tell people your background?
Yeah. So I'm a husband, father of two. I'm currently nomadic, I guess. The best way to explain it. I own Tomorrow Creative. We serve churches all over America, basically as creative directors now. And we also do full fulfillment with like graphics, and we're mainly a graphic studio. So I've been doing that for like 3 years full time now. And it's been a joy being able to serve the biggest churches and smallest churches in America, and just trying to push like the creative world, like the creative church to the next level. Like we want to be able to be competitive with the world, and like people see our stuff, people see our creativity, and they're like, Tomorrow Creative is the best in the world, period. And we serve the local church. So a little bit about me, I guess. Yeah,
man. Love what you guys are doing at Tomorrow Creative. Actually hired you guys for our church for a while.
Yeah.
You guys crushed it for us. And a lot of your posts that pop off are all about Gen Z and youth. I know you spoke at YFN this past year. I saw the New York Times reported that Gen Z, like for the first time ever, basically, like Gen Z men are more religious than women. Did you see that?
Yeah. They're like the fastest growing is like men, which is so crazy. Because
why do you think that is? But really quick, before we jump into that, pastors, I'm going to ask you a question. Can your church handle more new guests? If that answer is yes, then I want to tell you about Church Candy. See, at Church Candy, we help churches get more new guests on Sundays by running their Facebook and Instagram ads, inviting their city to church. We are on a mission to connect 1 million people to a local church. And so far, we have already connected over 250,000 people to churches all across the country. And we would love to send people to your church as well. Imagine all the people that drive by your church every single day that want to grow in their relationship with the Lord, that want to be plugged into a life-giving church community, but they have no idea that your church exists. We want to get them connected to your ministry. So go to churchcandy.com or hit the link below in the description. I'll also pin it in the very first comment so you can schedule a call with the Church Candy team, learn more, and see if we would be a good fit to work together. Now, back to the podcast.
I mean, historically, it was all women. I think the internet is one big reason. Like, a lot of male voices are kind of rising up on the internet. Like Cliff, what's his last? Connect, I think his last name is. There's a bunch of, like, even like kind of the red pill situation, where it's like a lot of people were leaning more conservative. I think there's also been a lot of voices in the church, Christianity, that have been doing podcasts. Like George Janko's a good example, where he was on the biggest like male listening podcast, and the next thing you know, he's doing Christian content. So I think the internet has a big thing to do with it. And I think also it's kind of edgy to be Christian, like as a Gen Zer, because like for a while it was like Gen Z was not Christian. We were like the most, they call it the post-Christian generation. No one wanted to be Christian. No one was going to church. So it became kind of edgy to be like, oh yeah, I go to church. Yeah, I believe in the man and woman marriage. Like, I believe in these values. So then it's like, as men,
it's like counterculture.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of men tend to go into the things that are like dangerous vibes, anarchy vibes. So I think the church at some point was like, this is different. This is edgy. This is like dangerous. This is like not like, this is against mainstream. So I think that's why. And I think a lot of young men are like trying to find who they are. And when they're trying to find who they are, they search, and the internet is beginning to show them different viewpoints that they don't get at home, they don't get at school. And Christianity has become one of those things where it's like, online, I get a viewpoint that I won't get at school. I don't get Christianity at school. I go online, I start seeing these podcasts, these people who are making sense, who are saying like biblical truths, like Wes Huff. I'm seeing these male voices who are like super strong and convicted. So then now that turns me into intriguing factor of like searching into Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, in the last election, you saw like Gen Z more conservative than like previous generations of that age group. Do you think there's like a correlation with like Gen Z going back to church, them voting more conservatively? Like, do you think there's like a
for sure
correlation there?
There's a correlation into like, if everyone's saying this, especially young people, they want to do the opposite. So like, I feel like culture was pushing a certain way against church, against, you know, marriage, against like whatever values. So I think people were like intrigued to see what's the opposite. I know me personally, it's like everyone was saying, do this, do this, do this. So I'm going to do the opposite as a young person, right? Especially, it's like almost rebellion to be a Christian, which is so kind of weird in this age, but I think it's cool. I think it's what's pushing the church forward, is like this edginess. It's like, hey, like the world's saying this, so you want to rebel against what everyone's saying, be a Christian. And it's a cool difference right now.
Yeah. Why do you think some churches are better at reaching Gen Z than others?
I think authenticity. I think like a lot of the churches who are good at reaching Gen Z aren't trying too hard to fit in with culture. It's like, I think millennials, they spoke the language of relevance, but Gen Z speak the language of being real. And so like a lot of like, you think of like millennial church, you think of the purple lights, you think of like the show, the perfect formula, you think of the perfect service flow, you think of the perfect Instagram, perfectly curated. Then you think of a Gen Z church. They're doing like memes on their main feed, bro. They're doing like TikToks. They're doing like, their pastor is like preaching, you know, straight line by line the Bible. The worship is super authentic. It's not like formulated. So I think like the difference is a very formulated, a very structured way, and then Gen Z is very much like, is this authentic? Is this just who you are? And I think that difference has been able to push, the church forward.
Why do you think there's such a culture difference between like the way millennials do church and the way Gen Z is doing church?
Well, millennials were coming from a place where like their parents were forcing them to go to church. So the church was just trying to like make it cool for them to keep them in church. Rather than Gen Z, their parents weren't going to church really, or their parents weren't Christian. So I think that was the difference. It was like millennial like the pastors that were trying to pastor millennials were like just trying to keep them in church. Now we're at a place where like you're completely lost. We're just trying to get you to Christ. So there's like this difference where like I don't only have to impress you with my church service, but I have to impress you with my character as a person, give you the gospel. And from that place, then I'm like giving you a church service that fits that need rather than just trying to get you to stay in the church and try to impress you to stay. So I think that whole culture world is like, let me try to impress you, make everything cater to you, actually turned everyone off to church. And that's why we saw such a decline. But now we're in a place where like church and Christianity is kind of cool again. It's kind of like, oh, you're a Christian? Like, tell me more. And I think that's what is really intriguing to Gen Z. And if churches lean into this kind of culture where it's like, hey, like we aren't like the world, actually. Like we're opposite of the world. I think when we speak that way, we look that way, I think more Gen Z can be more intrigued to buy into their churches.
So I don't know that we've talked about this publicly, but back in like 2018, I applied for a job and interviewed and ended up turning it down at a church in North Richland Hills.
Okay.
For their youth pastor.
No way.
And then I saw a few months later, you took that job as the youth pastor there.
It's like a small, the tiniest little church ever.
Immigrant pastors.
What a small world. You never told me this.
Yes, we never brought it up.
So crazy.
I ended up moving down here and helping plant a church here in the Woodlands. But
that is so crazy.
Yes, I mean, bro.
What a small world.
I mean, there's only so many CF&I students. Like,
yeah.
And you and I were both youth pastors, though,
right?
Because like I ended up a student pastor for several years here in the Woodlands, and I feel like you and I are kind of like on paper we're Gen Z, but like we grew up in millennial church
for sure,
and like there's things with Gen Z that I identify with. There's things with millennials that I identify with. Like I feel like you're probably the same way.
Yeah.
And so what was it like being a youth pastor? Several years ago.
Yeah.
What are things that you think you did well, or are there any mistakes you feel like you made back then?
Yeah, I think we're in that age, the Millennials they call it now.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So that church, actually, the youth group was 4 kids, bro, and the youth group grew from 4 kids to 8 kids. So what's up,
bro?
That. Come on, hallelujah!
100% growth.
Come on, right now.
Put it on your resume,
bro.
Dude.
Right? And we actually met in a renovated janitor's closet, which had like just 8 chairs and then like a TV and a piano. And like in that time is actually how I started doing graphics, bro, because their graphics were so bad at the time. They had like an 80-year-old woman like doing graphics on Microsoft Word. So I was like, I have to help. Like I have to be able to communicate this, like the things I'm teaching in an aesthetic way. So that's how I learned like graphic design. I started doing it on my phone for my youth at that church. And I think what I learned there the most was like being present, where sitting and listening to people's conversations, like with these kids. Like they didn't care as much as like about my preaching. They didn't care about like what I was saying as much as me being present with them in the beginning. Like the most fruitful conversations that we're having was before service. And we would have hard conversations. One thing I found out like about Gen Z is like they weren't scared of hard conversations. Like I remember being before service and we would have like kids ask me like, what's your take on gay marriage? I'm like, I just came from like, I'm just starting the service, just trying to welcome people in. Like there was like that conversation. There was deep rooted biblical conversations that they were having and wrestling with that I think sometimes we make kids feel like they don't have enough like knowledge or wisdom to ask hard questions. And we kind of see them as too young to ask these hard questions, but they're wrestling with it. They're wrestling with questions about sexuality, about culture, about religion, about politics at a young age now. Like every kid right now has a TikTok, and TikTok can show them, anything on their feed. So what they're wrestling with is way different than, when I was a teenager, I wasn't wrestling with world politics. I was just like saying who's the best. We would argue who's the best basketball player of all time, like LeBron or Jordan. Now, like on their feed, they're getting world politics, Palestine, all these things. And as a pastor of Gen Z at that time, I realized I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. Like, I was like, I didn't have a lot of answers for things that were happening in culture. So that's what got me really started into trying to connect culture to the church. And it was hard because where that location, North Richland Hills, was very conservative. I was a minority pastor in this area, and I was pastoring in the middle of the time of 2020. And that was one of the hardest times to pastor, dude, because it was like these young guys are getting fed, a lot of mainstream stuff. And then the culture of North Richland Hills, Fort Worth was like, we're opposite of that, very conservative. So I had to learn how to like communicate to like the whole church in this conservative and in a conservative tone while simultaneously trying to pastor young people who don't believe the same thing as their parents. And I was like, this was insane. That was one of the most insane moments. And the pastor of that church, he's an awesome guy, Pastor Bernard, but he had like a kidney failure at the time. So I was like preaching on Sundays and Wednesdays. So on Sundays, I would preach to a culture of like conservative culture. They hated wearing masks. I remember like Fort Worth was like, you can't put a mask on me. Like, that was the culture. And I'm coming from Dallas, downtown Dallas. And I'm coming from where, like, I was working another job with a gay boss who was like super on the other side. So I remember like trying to balance these two. So on Wednesday, I'm trying to teach kids like why we have compassion for, Black Lives Matter and people who are getting killed. On Sunday, I'm trying to teach how do we stand for truth. It was like this whole crazy context switch. But I'm saying all that to say that it's the level where Gen Z was way different to where we were as teenagers. Like they're getting fed heavy cultural conversations, and we as pastors have to be prepared for that, like in youth ministry right now. And back in the day, we didn't have to, but today, like, we have to be prepared. So if we used to think youth ministry is fun, the games, pizza.
Bro, I loved it. That was my favorite part of like.
Me too. It was. I thought that's what it was, and then when I got into it, and I'm like having conversations, having to like explain, like, why do we believe our view of marriage? And I was like, I don't know biblically. I had to go study and then bring this back to her. And then she would ask me more questions about it. And I'm like, bro, like, I don't know enough. I was like 20 years old. So I think I was ill prepared in that sense. But that did open my eyes to realize what level Gen Z was at that time. And now even Gen Alpha, they're going to be in the next level of what they're exposed to,
Yeah. Dude, these iPad kids, they're growing up in a completely different time.
It's scary to think, like, I have conversations, like I go travel and preach. I have conversations with 13-year-olds who know what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Like, bro, I was not thinking about that. And it's honestly probably giving them some level of anxiety that they shouldn't be having. But I think as youth pastors, especially church leaders, like we shouldn't make these kids think, like treat them as children, know that they're exposed to almost the same things we're exposed to, and be able to have answers and communicate in a good way to them to understand biblical truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on it some, but I'd love to hear more. How do you think social media has played a part in bringing the gospel to Gen Z?
Oh, it's a big part. My boy, Bryce Crawford, is a big example. Like his ability to, like, I've been saying this, like creators are the new shepherds, where like kids don't know famous pastors, but they know these podcasters. Like they know content creators. They can't tell you who Joel Osteen is, but they can tell you who Bryce Crawford is, which is like insane to think about. And I think it's like as a church, we have to lean into these guys and understand that these guys are communicating in a way that this generation understands, where it's like raw, authentic, and direct. Where as a church, it's not really direct. It's kind of polished, and it's not raw. It's like, it's very formulated. People are preaching sermons. The sermons have like perfect, closing and conclusion. And I mean, I love preaching, so I love that whole, the science behind it. But our generation, especially the younger Gen A, they don't understand preaching science. They don't understand church formulas. They don't know what a pastor does. I remember going back to that church. I remember this new kid came into the church. I come up to him and I'm like, hey, my name is Pastor Jacob. He's like, what's a pastor? His first time in church. He had no idea what a pastor was. But I never introduced myself as Pastor Jacob ever again in my entire life, because it's like this generation doesn't understand that. So I think what these podcasters are doing, content creators, social media influencers are doing, they're bypassing the need to explain their position or their authority. They're just giving it direct. Here's what we believe. Here's what I believe. Here's what I think. I think that's why this generation gravitates to that, because it's like open, authentic, and real and direct to them. Rather, when a pastor's preaching, it's to everyone. So sometimes you can feel like it's missing. Like it's not, is this to me? Is it not to me? But social media is like, this is directly to me. And I could process it longer than the sermon, I think. So like if you have a sermon, there should be a way you can express that sermon throughout social media throughout the week, so that it can be more direct to your people rather than just a wide open sermon that kind of gets lost in translation.
Yeah, talk more about that. Like how can churches use social media to reach more Gen Z?
Yeah, I mean, it should reach everyone, right? Because I feel like you can do podcasts and it's going to reach a boomer and it's going to reach a Gen Zer, right? If you have a boomer in your church, they're loyal to your church. They love your church already. When you create a podcast, if you do iPhone videos, those people are believing that they're getting spoken to them. So I don't think it's just Gen Z. I think it's everyone, where it's like how do I take this 45-minute sermon, this content that I prayed about, studied about for hours? Why would I waste it just for a 45-minute sermon that gets lost on YouTube for like 40 views, right? Why not just break it into graphics, break it into podcasts, break it into different clips, break it into different methods to spread that message throughout the week to disciple my people? So like using Facebook, using Instagram, using YouTube to reach the different generations in different formats so that they can get the same message, same content, but in different ways, more direct to them. So, or even using other voices in your church to take that same content from your sermon, making content on social media so that they can be able to express it in a different voice. I think that's the future though. Because right now it's like sermons are great. I love preaching, obviously, but not a lot of young people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna turn on the sermon. Like that's not a thing that's happening. So it's like, how do we take these great content that God revealed to our pastors and break it down throughout the week through graphics, podcasts, even iPhone video? I think this is the future of doing that. It's like,
so with the rise of the types of content that people consume, I know growing up, and then even our church, we've done it on some special Sundays where instead of it like being preaching like a message, there would almost be like a panel or a conversation,
yeah.
almost like a live podcast. Uh, do you see a world where that starts to become more of a norm rather than a traditional sermon being preached? There is almost like a live podcast conversation on Sundays.
Yeah, so Passion Young Adults just had their Summer in the City, and they do it every year where it's like basically this big event all of May and June, I think, where like they invite everyone from the city. And usually they bring like top preachers in, but this year they only brought podcasters. Like every single guest was a podcaster. And apparently like, this was the biggest Summer in the City they ever had, like in their history. So I think there's something in that podcasters obviously have like influence and following already, and you could watch their videos rather than like, I feel like when you watch a sermon, you have to be committed to watching a full sermon and being like entertained by it. Rather than a podcast, I can be working out, listening to a podcast and not feel like have to pay attention really intently. So a lot of people are like can watch these podcasts before they even see them live. So I think that's powerful. But I think this whole concept of that they had podcasts every single week. I think there's more engaging. There's more time to like think of questions and conversations. There's more time to reflect. And I think it's like also I think it's just direct, where like in a podcast format, the person asks a question and then you're answering directly to it, rather than a sermon. You're just kind of speaking to a ethereal, concept where it's like you're preaching against wisdom. You're preaching about conviction, rather than someone's asking a question and you answer directly. Everyone can kind of relate to that. I think that's for me, the podcasting is really just, it's more direct to a person. And that's why people, especially young people, they really gravitate to that. But I don't know if like older churches will like that. I feel like a lot of old churches love the sermons, and that's cool. But I think sprinkle it in, try it, and see what it does. See your response from that.
Yeah, and if we're just being real, bro, the ties from the older people is going to pay most of the bills.
Yeah, and it's like there's this tension where like our generation does have to build some resistance and learn to like listen to a sermon, right? Like we have to grow up too. And we shouldn't cater everything to young people.
No, the hack is you just get a Subway Surfer video and just hold it like this underneath where your pastor.
Oh
and
yeah.
So you just have it. That's what I have to do on Sundays.
I started little brain rot vibes. I started doing like designing live while preaching. So like I just did my first event like 2 weeks ago, where like literally I will design my graphics while I'm preaching. And it was insane. Like the amount of people, like young people just engaged in that, it was sick. So there's definitely new models and ways to do things. We just haven't thought them through yet. We just think, when we think church, we think of worship, sermon, and
bro, this podcast is going to be labeled as blasphemy and heretical.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We're the worst, bro. No, I think that's huge. I mean, if we look 500 years ago with like the Sistine Chapel, dude, the church was like leading the way in creativity and art, and now like that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of church creatives are still leading, and like for example, Ye grew up in church. Daniel Caesar grew up in church. A lot of these great like creative leaders grew up in church. They just didn't stay and invest in it. So I think there's that tension. I think the church should be some of the artistic leaders in the world. I think what we've done is just try to survive. Like, we haven't innovated or created for the world to see the gospel. I think whenever people created the Sistine Chapel and all these things, they had this mindset of like, this is for our city, this is for our world. So when they come in and see it, that God is glorified in it. Like, every time you've been to Sistine Chapel, you're like, oh my God.
Dude, it's wild.
You're getting the gospel message like visually. And I think there's something in that. And I forgot who, it was like, was it the Pope that commissioned that, or was it the person from Rome? I think, don't, if I get it wrong, whatever, but I think it was like the person from Rome, like the leader of Rome, commissioned that piece.
Oh, it's ChatGPT.
That's ChatGPT. But my whole point in that is that they created these monuments, these artistic pieces, so that the gospel be glorified visually, and that people can see like Jesus through art. And right now we just do it to survive and show off our churches and our sermon series. So I think there's that tension where it's like, are we creating to connect people to the gospel, to like creating great quality art so that God is communicated visually, or are we just creating just to create? So I think a lot of churches are just surviving, bro, which I understand. Like, a lot of small churches are like, I'm just trying to pastor people Canva graphic. But when we have no intention at all to show any visual communication of the gospel through our socials, through our main screens, through everything, we're losing people in that. And I think this is an added layer of the visual concepts often can help people concentrate and connect better in the sermon. And I don't know, a lot of churches are just, let's get by. Let's just get by.
Bro, that's my mindset. I'm gonna admit it right now. That podcast logo, I made that on Canva.
Come on. Hey, Canva, I'm not mad at Canva.
The Church Candy logo that we've built our business on, serving over 1,000 churches, was made on Canva. I made it on Canva and haven't looked back.
Hey, but Canva's not bad. I'm not hating on Canva.
No, and that's the thing. Like, that's my mindset too. Is like, I'm creative in certain aspects, but like, if I try to like spend time in graphic design and making these things. Side note, the Sistine Chapel was commissioned by Pope Julius II.
Yeah.
1508. So, but for me, if I'm like trying to spend hours being creative, I'm just getting inspiration from another design that another church did, or another business, or someone did, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna change this and make it like mine. I'm not just pulling stuff out of my rear end, just like, I'm gonna do this and spend hours doing it. And like, for me, this is more like advice for entrepreneurs and I guess maybe like church planters. They will spend hours on low ROI tasks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like, I've got a friend and he's like starting a business and he's telling me all about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what have you done so far? He's like, man, I was working on my logo and doing this. I was like, bro, we had like 10 clients before I had a logo on the website.
100%.
Like, that's focus on things that are going to be like high ROI. So like, for a church planter, spend time like recruiting for your launch team and like sharing that vision, maybe like before you have the logo. It's like, hey, I feel like God's stirring up on this. Like, start on that, right? That's going to be a better ROI for your time. So that's like my soapbox on the creative things. I'm a Canva, bro. I remember Ricky Baker. So for those of you probably know, Jim Baker, the televangelist, scandal-ridden, whatever, his son, amazing man of God, who we went to CFNI with.
Dope guy.
Whenever it was the CFNI student, I forgot what it was called, but we were in some sort of like thing where we would like do different creative things on Instagram. It was like the student life thing that I was on and Ricky was on. And he was like, bro, have you heard of Canva? And this was 2017.
That's such a crazy
bro,
statement.
I'm trying to gatekeep it. Don't tell people about it. And I was like, dude, I've been using Canva since I was in high school.
Yeah. Not gatekeeping Canva is crazy.
Bro, but in 2017, like it wasn't as big as it is now. So there's my little name drop in there for this podcast episode. So Rick, if you're out there, love you, bro.
I get what you're saying though. I get what you're saying where like creativity is low ROI, not low ROI, but it's a low task for a lot of people. But I think it's one of those things that you have to build systems for eventually. And I think a lot of churches don't build systems until they're later in the game, and next you know they're just scrambling.
Yeah.
So I even see churches we work with churches that are massive, and they're still at this place of like, oh, this is like the lowest task.
Dude, you would be surprised how many large churches do not have solid systems or people for this.
Or creative teams in
Like,
general. Yeah.
we have signed some very large churches. They're not under NDA. Like, I can talk about it, but I don't.
Yeah.
I already did my name drops for this.
Right.
And I'm so surprised. I'm like, why are you hiring us? You guys don't need us. Like, surely. And they're like, no, we just never. Like, they just like boost posts, and
that's so crazy.
And I'm like, oh my, or like, my buddy, I'll call him out. Erwin McManus got called out by John Rush because Mosaic, they were running ads for one of their campuses.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And like, you might have seen ads for it, right?
Yeah.
And
I saw ads for a New York campus.
Yeah, they were running ads for like their Studio City campus, and they're showing ads all over America. And it's like, bro, like, do a 5-mile radius from where you're planting. Dude. Like, you're in LA. And so these larger churches like don't have these systems that you might think that they would.
Yeah, I think that's so crazy to me. I think there's like the intentionality factor, and I guess going back to like the whole why I brought up the Sistine Chapel thing was like everything that the early church, like that church did, especially in the Renaissance era, was very intentional. And the fruit of that intention, bro, I, as a Puerto Rican, grew up, born in New York, raised in Houston, went to Italy to see that myself. Like, the fact that I paid money to go all the way to the other nation to see that shows that there's fruit behind intentional creativity. So, if you have a church that's like, I'm intentionally creative, there will be fruit. Will it be immediate? Probably not. But when you create a culture where we are intentional with creativity, we have systems that are like super intentional, that we're not just doing this to get by, but we're doing it to create communication to our people, to visually understand what we're saying, visually understand the message, and visually understand like the mission, then there's going to be fruit of that later. So it's a long game too. Creativity is a long game, but it's really much intention to your people. Like, I'm trying to communicate visually to my people. When I started with that same church, I created for my people. I would go around with a film camera and take pictures of different corners of North Richland Hills and use that as backgrounds for the sermon. Like things like that, where I was trying to be intentionally connecting to the people in my space. And from that, there's fruit from that, right? Now I'm doing it full time for amazing churches all around the country and the world. But I think a lot of churches in America is like, okay, let's just see who's doing it the best in the church world. Let's just take that same idea for our church. It's like, you can't copy Mosaic, bro. You're in the Woodlands. Right? Like, you can't copy, you couldn't copy someone in Houston when you're up here, up north. Like, what works for our people and what's the fruit from our people when they see our creativity? So,
yeah, bro, the Sistine Chapel, it's made a mark on me. Literally. Oh, yeah. I've never revealed this.
That's fire.
This tattoo.
It's actually unbelievable.
Dude, I love it. It. I definitely took pictures in there when they told me
I
not
tried so hard. I had so many people staring at me that I was like so nervous.
I'll have to, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the picture. This is a note from my editor, Dustin, to remind me to give you a picture to put right here on the screen. But definitely, hopefully the Romans or
you don't get banned from the Roman government.
The Vatican government's gonna call me out. Man, what are some cringy church trends that need to be left behind?
I think the biggest one would be, church trends. I mean, the cringiest is probably the bulletin graphics vibes. That's the first one.
What do you mean bulletin graphics?
Like when people just promote like whatever event on their social media. The fact that people are still doing that in 2025 is honestly terrible.
That's just like information.
Yeah, just like come to our event. Honestly, for me, my biggest church hot take is stop inviting people to church on your social media. Like, stop putting "you are invited" posts out. Like, the people who follow you probably already go to your church. You don't need to re-invite them to church. Like, do it for your ads or whatever. But like, I'm so frustrated by churches telling me that they're inviting me to their church. Like, bro, I'm not going to your church. I already have my church. And the people who are following you go to your church already. So why are you re-inviting them? That's how I feel. I'm like, I can't stand that. The other thing, honestly, your pastor doesn't need a podcast. Like, not every pastor needs a podcast. I'm overstimulated by the pastor podcast. Like, I think too many churches are trying to get their pastors to do hot takes on like clips and reels. I don't know about you, but I'd be seeing some like Instagram preaching reels, and I'm like, this shouldn't have been clipped. Right? Like, this should,
like, it's just controversy, just for controversy's sake.
Stop. Like, for me, stop picking the one part of the sermon that you know is gonna be blowing up just for the controversy. And I think a lot, like, especially on tithing, right now it's tithing. Everyone's posting a tithing clip. tithing, or about marriage, or something trying to be like about trendy culturally, I think that's whack. I think it's super whack to be posting these things like just for the clout. Right? Let's post this clip because we know it's gonna get like likes and comments. I think that's whack. I'm trying to see church cringe. I think a lot of stuff we do in church is cringy. But I think I don't know. What's your give me like ideas. What's something that you do?
Dude, for me,
I'm trying to think.
bro, I'm a cringe boy. Like everything I do is cringe.
I collect cringe.
Dude, I embrace it, dude. I think fantasy football leagues in church are cringe.
That's
because
a thing?
they never let me win. No, I'm just playing. Dude, I love my church. We have a fantasy football league, and
I got one. I got a hot take. I got at the movies, bro.
At the movies?
I know your church probably does at the movies.
No, we don't.
Okay. Bro, stop with that at the movies. I can't do it anymore. Like, I think it'll be dope if you did it once every like 3 years. But every year, sometimes people do it twice a year at the movies. I think it's a cool idea, but I think it's cringe. I think it's cringe when it's like, we got people in Superman costumes at church. I don't know. I don't think it's like anti-biblical. I don't think it's like wrong. I just think it's kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Like that at the movies. That's my hot take, I guess.
I wish I had numbers, because there's a really large church in Florida. They just did an At the Movies series, and like my first thought was like, oh my gosh, like I roll, right? And then they posted like how many new families came, how many salvations there were, and all of these stats, and I was immediately convicted.
About that at the movies?
Well, I was convicted because I was like, ugh, another At the Movies.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think people are doing it because other people are doing it. I don't think people are doing it because they feel convicted about doing it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't like when churches are doing something because another church does it. Does that make sense? Like, I can't stand that. Like, you're doing it at the movies because this big church did that at the movies. Not because, like, if you have the budget to have it super dope, then maybe. But there's people who do it with, like, no budget. Your team is, like, wanting to die because they sacrificed their whole day for this. And it's not as successful as a big church. Like, we probably did that. Like, that has a huge budget.
Oh, no, yeah, this was like a mega church.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think for super big churches, mega churches make sense because they have the budget, the platform, but also like their volunteers aren't stressing about it compared to like, dude, there's churches of like 200 people doing at the movies. Dude, your production guy probably wants to cry, bro, at this point. So I think that's my tension has always been like, I guess my biggest cringe thing is when a big church does something, and next you know, all these medium to small size churches are doing the same thing like 6 months later.
They're trying to pull off something that requires a champagne taste with a beer budget.
Right. Well, it's like, I think if you ask that pastor, oh, why are you doing it at the movies? They're going to try to come up with an answer that's spiritual, but really they're doing it because they saw this other church do it. And I think that even with creativity, with graphics, is like, oh, you're doing that graphic, not because, oh, like you thought through it or you thought of a good idea. It's like, oh, you saw a big church do it, so I'm going to do it. I think that's cringe. And I think people think that we can't catch them or we don't notice. I think everyone notices, like in the church world, like, oh, yeah, you're copying a big church. So I don't know. I guess that's my
I don't know. I feel like me and you notice that. I feel like the average person
they don't, yeah.
that isn't like all in church culture.
For sure.
Like, and they're not following a lot of these other churches on social media. They have no idea.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it's people who are in like other church leaders see that.
Like, I've got a girl on my team. She's amazing. And her name's Anna. Shout out Anna. And she does not keep up with church culture at all. And she's a life group leader. She went to CFNI. So she's got like a strong biblical foundation. But bro, she has signed up like 4 mega churches. I'll tell you when we're not recording.
Okay.
And I will call her and be like, "Oh my gosh, did you just sign up this pastor?" And she's like, "Yeah, is that okay? Is that a bad thing?" I was like, "No, this is great. Like, did you not hear about these controversies, or did you not hear like why they're like they're like, oh no, like I know they're a larger church, but I didn't know, like they don't she doesn't know anything about them. And so I feel like for the average person, they're not like
I get what you're saying.
As in church culture as like you and I might be.
Yeah. Well, I think the only thing with that, like, I guess it's like, I have a problem when people don't have the ability, or like they're refusing to have the ability to like come up with something new for their people.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with you. Like don't try to copy another church just because you think it's a cool idea whenever you don't realistically have that budget.
Right. Or even just like, it may not connect with your people. What if your people love line by line Bible study? Like, you know, like I think there's there's a fruit in, and this is for you, like you're like this, like you're authentically yourself. I can tell like from who you are. You've always been like entrepreneurial for the church, super like quirky and all these business things. You've always been like that. I've always been graphic, trying to be against the mainstream, rebellious vibes. I only got kicked out of Sistine like 3 times, right? Like that's been my vibe. So like I think when you embrace who you are authentically and then you express it, that's when people connect rather than, oh, we're just gonna do what everyone else is doing. No one's gonna connect to that. So a lot of churches are doing that. Oh, this person used this song, then I want to do it. This person did this video trend, so I'm gonna do it. Rather than like what, like let's think through. Let's be ourselves. Who are we? What city are we in? Like, let's do that, and that's how we're gonna reach the people that we have.
Is that where like a church's creative team would come into play?
Yeah, like your church. I think the church creative team should be a lot of people who are internally or in your city can speak the language of your church. And I think I was just having a podcast with my friend from Lakewood, and she's like, "Yeah, we're not trying to be Mosaic. Like, we're not. That's my name drop. All right. I was like, what do y'all do creatively? Like, how do y'all stand out? He's like, we don't try to stand out. We know that we're not cool. We know that we serve families who need hope in Houston. And I'm like, I love that. Like, they haven't changed their setup. They haven't changed their vibe because they know who they are. And I think for a lot of pastors, you can get swayed by church culture, going to conferences, going to these events. You want to look like these people because you admire them, but maybe your people don't connect to that, you know?
I was talking with the pastor of Seacoast Church. They're in Charleston. They were like one of the OG ARC churches. Now they have like 14 campuses. Wow. This is Greg Surratt. I did a podcast with him a while back. And I was like, why are like some church planters, like, why are they crushing it? And why do they, like, God's just done some really good things, and why do other struggles? And what he said is like, well, it's because now there's like, in every city, there's 5 other ARC church planters that are just like them.
Mm.
And you show up to their church, and you're like, hey guys, come to our growth track where you can find purpose, make a difference, or discover know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make a difference. And it's like, they're running the exact same like Highlands Church playbook, which worked, and it can definitely work in a lot of context. But he did say like people start to catch on, and they realize like this is just the same thing as the other church that I went to that I had church hurt from. Wow. And so what he was saying is like you just need to find something that's unique to you, and that isn't just the exact same thing as other churches.
That's so good.
And so what do you think, like, if a church wants to build a creative team, what are some tactical things they can do to do that?
Yeah, first I would find volunteers. If you have budget, obviously I would hire a contracting company.
He said I would hire Tomorrow Creative.
Not just Tomorrow Creative, but like, because I would say not everyone, I'm not for everyone either. Like, we're very against the grain, like edgy. So if you like want to be normal, if you're suburban, we may not fit your vibe. But like, I think if you have budget, you should hire contractors because they specialize in doing that. And then you can just assign tasks and they can take care of it for you. So you don't have to pastor a creative. Because I think there's a responsibility too. Like, if you hire a graphic designer, you're also entrusted with that person's soul in a sense. If they go to your church, like, you're going to pastor that person too. So there's that tension where that's the extra work in a sense, rather than if you hire a contracting company, you literally treat them like a plumber. That's how I tell my clients, like, treat me like a plumber. Like, I'm here to do a job, and then that's how we're here to do. So I think that's the cool thing about contracting. There's Divine Persuasion, Church Media Squad, Sunday Social. There's so many companies out there. Good and Faithful Studio. So many people. Church Goods. Shout out everybody. You know, and that don't just use me.
So there's one guy that's waiting for you to say that
I know.
His agency.
There's something I don't know. There's obviously something I don't know, but Church Goods is one of my favorite people. But anyways, but I think that's the option A. Option 2, if you're a church planner, you should look for or even communicate to your church who is interested in this. And I think also as church planners, I think a lot of church planners reach out to us for like a main thing, like a brand book. I don't think you should have a brand book. I think you should have like an aesthetic guide, whereas like, this is who we are. Here's fonts that are in our style, and hire a studio, hire a person that will create just an aesthetic guide.
Yeah.
So that you have already a framework for volunteers.
Explain the difference for churches between like a brand book and an aesthetic guide.
Yeah. So a brand book is like a logo, the spacing between a logo, the type of colors you would use for that. Usually a brand guide is for corporations. So whenever you're making a bunch of assets for a corporation, logos don't change colors, sizes, spacing. That's what a brand book's for. It's for type, like, only has like 3 to 4 types, has like the logos and submarks that you use for print, very big things like billboards, print, paper, all those things. An aesthetic guide is basically it's like an essence guide in a sense, where this is how we want to feel as a church. This is how we want to look as a church. So it has multiple fonts. It has multiple colors, palettes, has multiple pictures and imageries, and it has like mood boards inside of it, so that you can hand this to a volunteer, and on Canva, they can like kind of copy what you already made. I would start that way, where I would hire, as a church planner, I would spend $400, hire one of these guys, someone you know, and be like, hey, like, make us an aesthetic guide. Make us like, here's our city, here's how we want to look, here's what we believe, and have that person put together a mood board, fonts, colors, different font pairings, so that you can hand it to a volunteer, and that volunteer is not making, terrible graphics. Like, that volunteer has a guide to how this is how we want to look. So I think that's the main thing, is make sure you have a foundation of how you want to look, colors, inspiration, so that your creativity isn't sporadic and everywhere, that you already have a plan from there. So as you get bigger, as your church grows, then you can hire contractors, hire staff. But no matter what, you should always have a base of this is how we want to look. Have a vision behind it. If you have a vision for Growth Track, you have a vision for discipleship, small groups, you should have a vision for your creative too.
I love it, man. I love it. You kind of spoke to it a little bit earlier, but I want to leave it with this. Jacob, what is your church hot take?
My church hot take. Did I tell you that already or no?
You kind of dropped some. So you know
Bro,
what?
I'm out.
All right.
The one I had was, can't say it.
Oh, okay. Well then, we'll
Oh, I have one. No, yeah, because I have one. Okay, I have it. Sorry. I hate the 30-second social stuff. Like when you have to get up and meet your neighbor. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, when it's like, before you find your seat, turn to your neighbor.
Bro, like that has to be the worst. Like for me, there's like 30 seconds. The church I go to right now, they do literally like 5 minutes. It feels like 5 minutes. It may not be 5 minutes, bro, but it's definitely 3 minutes. Honestly, I understand like we're supposed to talk to people and like all the things, but dude, I'm an introvert low key. Dude, it's like the hardest 30 seconds of my life. Let's cut it out. Just make your sermon shorter. Give space between services so people can hang in the lobby in the parking lot rather than forcing me to talk to somebody on the side. I don't know. That's how I feel. Right? I think you should just make your sermon shorter. Give space between services so people can hang in the lobby. Don't just like make me talk to someone and leave. Right? Or what do you think?
I don't know.
Do you like the 30-second social?
I don't know, man. For me, I'm like you. I'm introverted. At the end of the long day, like my wife's like, "Oh, do you want to go do this or hang out with these people?" I'm like, I want to sit in my recliner and watch football.
Right,
like that's
right.
what. Like I don't want to or hang out with the kids. Like I don't want to go and hang out with people. But like I get it.
Like, I never met my best friend in a 30-second social.
No,
I met all my closest friends in connect groups
and
in the lobby.
Typically, like I go to a smaller church. Like we all typically know each other. Like if I see a new guest, I'll try.
Do you do it at your church?
We do. Yeah, I mean, like it's not my call.
But that's cool though, because then you can like say hi to your friend that you didn't say hi if you showed up.
No,
late.
yeah, like this past Sunday, my boy David, he's normally like in the production booth every Sunday, and I saw that he wasn't, and so like I made a point to go up to him. I was like, "Hey, David, what's going on, man? It's great to see you." And like we talked for a second, and because of David, he's the one that never makes any trades with me in fantasy football. So David, I'm coming for you this year. But no, low key, like I don't mind it. Like
nah, dude, it's you're not gonna meet your best friend there.
You think it's because it's like forced?
It's because it's forced, and it's like some churches do it too long. Like if it's longer than 30 seconds, I'm angry already at this point. Sometimes I'll sit down now, just like I probably look like a jerk, but I'm on my phone. Looking at, checking the weather in like Cancun.
Bro, that's me during announcements.
Oh, I can't stand announcements either. Bro, that could have been an email, low key.
Yeah.
Especially for events, is like they're trying to sell you on the event. Like I already knew if I was going or not if you did an announcement.
I think Brady Shearer has like the best guide for this. It's like instead of just being like, "Hey guys, on December 3rd, we're doing this, this, and this," it's like you have to incorporate storytelling in it.
Yeah, it's cool.
And like share testimony or like make it more engaging rather than just diarrhea of the mouth.
For sure.
Data and info.
But I like the videos. Do you like the videos? Or you like the in person?
He does. I think they're recommend like Brady recommends in person. We do in person just because like I think video announcements, you have to be like a certain size church to be able to pull off video announcement.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's not worth your time.
I feel you.
Because it's like, are you really going to take time to block out to record the videos, then edit it and post, get it to the production team for Pro Presenter? Heck, that's small of a church. The guy that's pressure recording the camera is the production team that's going to be. So it's almost like not like that person's time could be better spent doing other things. So I don't think it's like worth it to do video.
I feel you. Yeah, I like it. I like the idea of like the video because it helps transition to the sermon. I think it's always an awkward transition. That's the problem. Like the transition from worship to announcements to sermon I think is always super weird.
What are your thoughts? This is always like rubbed me in a weird way whenever like whoever's doing announcements, like, can we just stand to our feet and honor the man of God of this house?
Oh no, I'm not with that. But I get it. That's an old school vibe.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's like, if that's my pastor, like, I'm not clapping him for every week because that's giving cult vibes.
Well, and what's the difference between
if it's
like
a guest,
honor and respect versus like making an idol of like someone?
Well, like the thing is, if it's every week, it's kind of dumb. But if it's a guest, I get it.
And I feel like, because our church will kind of do that, but I think it's almost like we got to transition this moment somehow, and it's easier to get people to clap and stuff that makes that transition feel smoother.
That's why people do the 30-second socials, like to get the pulpit out there and to do all the things. But I don't know, like that, and then giving messages. I don't think churches do it anymore, but I remember back in the day, like growing up, like people would do like a full like giving sermon.
Bro, you know why, right?
Because they need money.
Dude. I disagrey with you. I think churches don't talk enough. I think most churches don't talk enough.
I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying don't. I think it's weird where we place it.
Okay.
Like we have worship, and then next thing I got a sermon before the sermon. And I think,
so you're saying like
giving? Talk about giving. I think when they do
preach on giving, yes, but don't
do like a giving message like before. You know, when someone go up there and be like, "Hey, we're gonna take tithes and offering," and like, yesterday I gave my tithes and suddenly my dog was resurrected from the dead. Right? They do things like that.
Yeah.
I remember at my church growing up, he would like every week somehow he had a miracle happen because he tithes. The groceries appeared in my basket or like whatever, right? So I'm like, and then next thing you know, like we had to go to another sermon, and I'm like, oh, this is so much, like too much talking. I don't like that. I like when they talk about giving. I think every church should preach about giving.
Okay. I thought you were saying
I'm not anti. Your pastor should preach about giving at least one sermon series a year.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're on the same page there. As far as like the talking about giving,
the tithing message, as we call it.
Yeah. Like during like the announcements,
do you think it convinced? I think at that point, you're manipulating.
It has to be a real testimony.
Yeah.
Like it can't. And I don't know if that like 1 to 3 minute time slot is enough to share. Like,
but I think people who were gonna give before. I don't know how many. I mean, I would love to see a stat where it's like how many people gave because I gave this testimony. But then it feels manipulative.
I think there's a guy that, bro, he's just super wise beyond his years, and he was telling me that like rather than try to have these little testimonies or things, like long term you need to just cultivate a culture of generosity in your church. That's gonna have a better ROI than these little like 1 to 2 minute talking
if
points.
you teach it biblically, it'll make you want to give rather than like my dog got resurrected from the dead, so I need to give for a miracle. Then next thing you know, you're discouraged. Or like when pastors will go up there and being like, this money is gonna go to Africa, or they'll show you a video of Africa, like when you give, it gives to Africa, but really like only 10% of all the money goes to missions.
Yeah,
I don't like that stuff.
You gotta be straightforward and say like, yes, your giving goes to like operations of the church, but it also does this too.
For sure.
Like you can't act like,
don't manipulate me into giving it.
Yeah.
Tim Ross, when I was on his podcast, he said like he would tell his church, the level of your giving is how I can minister. Like if you give little, then we can have a band, so we're gonna have tracks. If you give little, I can't show up to all your weddings because I have to work a full-time job. So like the level of your giving shows us the level that we can minister to you. And I was like, he would communicate this to his church. And I was like, that's a great way to communicate it. Like, do you like the LED screen? This is how much it costs to maintain it. I give money because I love LED screens, right? Like I love graphic design. So I want my church to continue to be the best in that. So if our church communicates, so I was like, hey, the level of your giving actually helps this become greater, helps us become more excellent, helps us like be all that we can be. I think that's when it's easier for us to give rather than your money's going to Kenya. Next thing you know, it's like, no, it's not going to Kenya. It's going to Jacob and Tomorrow Creative to make great graphics. So I'd rather, you know what I'm saying? I'd rather that be a conversation, be authentic, because I feel like we're getting paid by some tithes, obviously. I feel like it's wrong to manipulate a church member for, you know, you're really paying staff, you know? It's not wrong to pay staff, but I think is to communicate that. Do you love Pastor Joe? Well, he needs to feed his family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's obviously better ways to communicate it, but Tim Ross said it a great way. Like the level of my ministry is dependent on the level of our giving. So
it's huge, man.
Yeah, bro.
I love it. Tell people about Tomorrow Creative and how they connect.
Yeah, follow us on IG at Tomorrow Creative. Follow me at Jacob.Girl. You'll find all Tomorrow Creative needs. TomorrowCreative.com. There's Canva templates on there. $30 gives you the highest quality Canva templates for your social media. It has sermon series on there. We have $5 youth stickers. It's like 100 youth stickers, different like templates and PNGs for $5 for youth ministries. So check out Tomorrow Creative. Check out the templates. Check out the assets. Hit us up. There's a mission form on there, so tell us what you need and we'll serve you.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for the episode.
That's it.